happy about it, which is going to be
No, I'm
the
really happy
unpopular
about it.
opinion. Oh, good. We
Speaking
have somebody else with me here.
Speaking of being happy about it, this is the T-Force LCS rundown coming back to you live. This time, actually, shortly after 9 o'clock for part two of
Yeah,
our.
wait, hold on. You had one job.
Yeah, come on, Greg. I said I wasn't
Jesus.
doing it this week. Yeah, there you go.
There we
It's a
go.
super week.
Super weak. Yeah.
Part two of our Week 11 LCS discussion. We're going to be switching over to the NA side. If you're just joining us live or if you're hitting us on the podcast. Speaking of which, I don't know how the podcast version is going to work out this week. So, Brock, figure that out.
Note to Brock.
This
Figure
will
it
be NA
Listen
discussion.
to this part.
We already discussed EU. We went into that a whole bunch. As a brief recap, 3 out of 5 say Alliance will win, 2 out of 5 say Fnatic, and we're all across the board as to who's going to be the third team into Worlds. And we don't like Gambit. So moving on into NA, let's start talking about the two pieces of news. We did have, interestingly enough, even this late in the game news. Starting out, LMQ has had some ownership problems, and it's too big of a discussion to kind of go into at this point as to who's saying what, how this affects their relationship with Riot, how this affects their relationship with their owners. It's kind of a much bigger issue that maybe we'll have to take a look at after Worlds. But as of right now, we just want to float that out there, that there has been issues. LMQ as a team has been on a lot of pressure, and therefore have had the focus and the limelight throughout the community. So we'll keep that as a bit of a subtext throughout our conversation going throughout. But one team that just decided to say pressure and super weak, fuck that, we'll go to Korea, is CLG. And Mitch, now that you're back on the webcam on twitch.tv/Tforce podcast, why don't you tell us what CLG decided to do this week?
Well, I think you pretty much put it very succinctly there. They decided to go to Korea and left their subs to take over for them. Hotshot and Friends has been the nicely named crew for at least what Red's been calling them, and I know that everyone here has a very interesting opinion on it. I personally am a fan of what they did because they said we're already in the playoffs. Our chances of making top 2 are slim considering how we've been doing the last couple weeks, and decided to instead go to Korea, be with Monty, boot camp for a little bit, get some experience going into playoffs, and hopefully change whatever's been going on the last few weeks, which I think they need to do something. And it's not like they were going to do a roster change or I don't know. So practice in Korea, I think it's a good decision. Hopefully it'll work out for them when they actually opened up against Curse, I think, in quarterfinals.
Yep, they're going to be playing Curse, and TSM will be facing Dignitas, but we'll get into that in just a second. I love this. I love everything about this. I've always said, and I've always felt, and we brought this up a couple of episodes ago, that I wish the sub roster was a little more active. Like there was a little bit more dynamic nature to what was going on. Like, we're going to be playing against Zhao in the mid. And our mid laner, this one sub we have, does really well against Zhao. He has his number. Let's bring him in and then be able to do stuff. We're not there yet. I don't think we ever will be there. But this is at least like, hey, we have other things we want to focus on and we want to pay attention to. Bring in the subs. That's what they're there for. That's what they're on the roster for, to substitute when the team can't be there to play. What a better time than to be able to focus in on playoffs. That's, to me, the best thing you could do.
It seems to me like I'm really happy with the decision. Like I think it's really great that they're deciding to do this. It's really risky for CLG as an organization. They probably lose face, and it probably made some of their sponsors unhappy, guaranteeing an 0-4 week. But it's the decision that's best for the team competitively, because I mean this is what they need if they want to have a chance at qualifying for Worlds, given their poor record. The other thing is that it also reveals a huge issue with the way that Riot structures games competitively, because if a team can just miss 4 games, and that's not an issue, like they can miss 4 games and they're still fine in the standings and they have no threat of being dislodged. Like it's a little bit of it is because the bottom 2 teams are so bad this split, or they have such poor records. But the other thing is like this would not work in an OGN format because that's 12 points that you're losing in OGN, which is huge. If you were to 0-2 like 4 consecutive games, you would be out. There would be no way your team would still be in competitively. So I think that what I'm really hoping is that this forces a change to a different structure competitively.
I don't.
In the LCS.
In the LCS, yeah.
I would like to see a different one than just this. But yeah, if anything, this is going to open a very big discussion about that. Just saying, fuck this week.
I don't mind a new format, but I don't hate this play at all.
I hate it.
Why do you hate it?
Okay, I guess maybe it's a little bit ignorance, but we've never seen most of these players on their roster before. So it's like an entirely different team shown up. I don't know what exactly the rules for subs are, but I don't know of any other professional sport where you can replace literally your entire team and have it still count. Like,
I think
it's ridiculous, and it's extremely disrespectful to the North American Championships in general.
I mean,
Yeah.
so to compare this, I guess, it's like in basketball when you pull LeBron off in the last 10 minutes because you know you're not going to win, and you let him rest while you let some of the bench warmers go out and play and have a good time. And I think if you're a sub on any team, you're like, fuck yeah, like, get us in. Let us get real experience. At the very least, let us show other teams what we can do as players. Let us get some hype. Let us get some hype. It's hype.
But,
that's all it is.
I mean, the most any of those players can hope for is good marketing, and Hotshot's not going to play again competitively. Chaos isn't going to play again competitively.
Chaos wants to. He quit coaching for Coast because he wants to. But
yeah.
All right. Well, I like this isn't good advertising. 0-4ing in an LCS week is not good advertising.
Yeah, but
it's a guaranteed 0-4.
They haven't played together.
0-4.
It's not.
They haven't played together ever. This team hasn't played together.
No, exactly. Which is why I
so
feel like as an individual player, why would you want to put yourself out there knowing you're going to lose all 4 of your games? Like, you look better in a challenger circuit beating challenger teams than you do just losing consistently in LCS. I feel like.
I thought Nien looked actually pretty okay, like a lot better than I was expecting him to.
Yeah, he was one of the best players on the team.
It was just off the just one split now, but he looked actually pretty good. And I don't know, was he playing with the challenger team right now?
He was, yeah. He was playing with Frank Fang Gaming for a while. And he's also just plays an absurd amount of solo queue, I know for sure, and has very much tried to stay a meta top laner and learn only meta tops. So he's still very passionate about competitive play, and I think he's one of the few players that has stayed up to date. Whereas like Hotshot, I don't feel like has stayed up with competitive meta. You know, he got his champion pool got banned out that one game. Yeah, the Lux pick.
I think as a bench warmer, I mean, maybe not expect the whole team to up and quit, but like this is the kind of stuff you want to see, because what
do you though?
What are you doing? What are you doing as a sub on the team? How often do you play?
I don't disagree that it's good for the subs, but it doesn't make any sense from a competitive standpoint. From the point of view of the LCS in general.
I really got to put the hamper on this sub thing because only 2 of the 5 players that played are registered CLG subs beforehand. The other 3 they just literally picked up.
Who were the other? Who were those 2?
Nien and Hotshot.
Yeah, that's what I thought because we haven't seen Chaos the entire time. I never even heard of the other 2.
He just quit as the coach.
Who are ThinkCard and Baby Eater?
ThinkCard, you sub for EG last split when Snoopy couldn't had visa issues or whatever, and then Baby Eater was the support from Nien's challenger team.
Okay. So
also, weren't they supposed to have somebody else? Like
they were supposed to have. They were supposed to have Con Quan, who was ThinkCard's roommate. But because of the challenger ruling between 2 teams that nobody's heard of before, Kimchi Too Spicy and Kimchi Dose Spicy, he was on that team for 1 day to help them get to Coke League. He played for 1 day, but was left on the roster, and everybody from both rosters got disqualified from competing because they match fixed against each other in the ranked ladder.
Yep.
Well, that's what you get.
So he got screwed over by helping another team for 1 day. Not even the day they match fixed. He just filled in for 1 day and was left on the roster, never left, never got taken off, and he got screwed over because of it.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
overall, I don't really see this as being a huge deal. I think this avoids game like Alliance versus Millennium, where, hey, this doesn't matter for either of us. Let's just go fuck around.
No,
Like,
instead
those
it's
games
a
are
free win for someone else. I have to be the other
necessarily.
person in the room that absolutely hates this idea. And aside from the games in LCS and how it impacts the fact that CLG could have been playing for a bye, they could have not had to play against. Thankfully, Curse went all the way up. So despite Curse being an extremely good team, I think so. But CLG could probably beat them in the shape they were just previously. So maybe that worked out for them in the way the playoffs structured out.
But
That
I
aside,
will-
See, and this is where I kind of get conflicted. Did Curse play CLG?
No.
No, they did not. Okay. See, I kind of feel, and this is a good segue, I think, off this topic, because I think at this point we're all just
we're not-
stabbing each other.
I
like,
haven't got a chance
fuck
to
you,
even
I'm right.
say anything.
Yeah, no. I think let Tom talk. Tom has
all
a
right.
differing opinion, and I'm actually happy to hear what he has to say. Yes.
Boo,
As
you're
as
wrong.
much as I really think that CLG will get experience in Korea, I have to say that this is a really terrible move on their behalf. If I'm a Korean team and I'm not in OGN anymore because everybody but the final two teams, or third and fourth place technically, happened knocked down to NLB. Let's say I'm like a CJ Blaze or a CJ Frost or an SKT1K, and I'm in NLB and I'm playing, like, especially T1K. They're playing to try to get to Worlds still. And this team from NA who was in first place and then lost their most recent 2 or 3 weeks straight of the LCS comes in and goes, hey, you want to scrim? Why would I ever want to scrim that team?
Yeah, but I think that's a poor decision on Korean part, though, because there's no way CLG went into this just assuming people were going to scrim them.
I think Monty has
Monty
probably set
talked to
that up.
teams ahead of time, and set this up. There's no way.
I mean,
And
that's
maybe these teams are just playing for the novelty of like beating the shit out of Doublelift, right? Like maybe that's just what does it for them. It's just like the way to relax after they struggle through NLB. It's just trashing on the world's best ADC. But I mean, they're playing the games, and CLG will hopefully learn something. My concern is, like, if they don't win a single game, they're not going to learn anything. Because, like, for me, the best way to learn has always been playing someone who's slightly better than you or can teach you something. But if they're playing like they played in the NA LCS against, like, competitive level Korean teams, they aren't going to learn anything because it's going to be a shit stomp. They're not even going to make it out the gate.
they can learn a couple things from that, like what not to do in the early game, which has consistently been one of their weaker sides, just as historically as a team. Not necessarily every single game in the split, but just the CLG strategy is normally like the early game isn't the best for them. I think it would be really great for Dexter. I think it might be pretty good for Afromu, but I still think the biggest thing is, like, okay, Monty and I believe Lil Susie are helping out as well. Just being like, okay, well, we set up some scrims against some of the NLB level OGN teams. Like, if you can't beat the teams in NA and you lose out to these teams and maybe learn a couple things, like, is that really worth it? Like, playing against the 8th best team in Korea, you ask Monty's going to be like, oh, the 8th best team in Korea is the 8th best team in the world. But when you, like, look at it on paper, are they really that much better than Fnatic or LMQ or Cloud9?
I mean, I'm hoping they're going to get a better strategy. I know, Sefa, you were talking about this last week, where you're saying no innovations happened, especially in NA and EU.
I did take, EU has Alliance.
EU had that one. I know you said there was.
Take it back a little bit, but for the most part, there's not a whole lot of innovation, and I think that is still very true.
And so that's what CLG could potentially bring back, and I'm hoping for it. I know that Seth and I are both CLG fans, and I'm hoping they're bringing something back. But we don't know. This could be the worst decision or the best, and we won't know until we at least see them play against Curse in the first or in the quarterfinals.
I don't think they're going to bring back innovation because they still don't have the toolkit to research ahead of time. Like, the most innovation they're going to bring back is something that we might not see before Worlds, but I don't think it'll be their innovation. I think it'll be another Korean team's innovation that they picked up.
I think it'll be Korean's innovation. I don't think they're going to make something themselves, but
just be
it'll
like
be
Dyrus
due
and
to
copy
us.
everybody.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it when you're not sure what you need to be playing competitively. Just look at Korean teams and say, okay, well, this is what my champion pool needs to look like.
God, that's what Millennium does, and look at where Millennium is right now.
That's what everybody
playoffs.
does. Look where everybody in Europe is.
I don't know.
Except for Aatrox top and Yorick. But Maokai top was a European thing. I will give them credit for that. That is good, and that has transcended Europe and has become a worldwide thing. So props to EU for Maokai top, and props to Fnatic for Riven jungle, which is, I think, or props to Alliance, sorry. That's exclusively an Alliance thing. I think only they will play it.
I'll I'll give it to CLG only because they don't have to concentrate about winning or losing. They don't have to think about where is this going to put us in positioning. Is this going to get us to the top? Is it going to get us to the bottom? All they have to focus on is problems and solutions, and it's against new teams that they haven't been scrimming against before. Regardless, that's going to give them more than playing against Dignitas, who they've played a bunch before. That could be hit or miss. Let's see who else we got here. Evil Geniuses, Complexity. Like, I don't think wins or losses against those teams are going to do as much as it will a win or a loss against these new Korean teams. To me, it almost doesn't even matter that they're in Korea. They could have just stayed home, and I would have supported this. And they could have been scrimming other teams or just practicing new strategies, on their lonesome. I think this is an opportunity for them to take a step back, get out of the competitive mindset. We're not worried about Super Week. This isn't like crazy 4 super stressful days where you have to, 2 or 3 super stressful days where you have to really muster down and wait for games to happen, then do the games, and then you either win or you lose. No,
Oh, I'm sorry, they can't handle the rigors of the competition.
Like, I think
the thing is
is
they don't have to. They don't have to. Your
They
precious
should
EG.
have to.
No, your precious EG did so bad that them losing 4 games doesn't matter. That's what it comes down to.
Winning 4 games too from EG, which was
think
impressive.
Nobody cares. That's
really-
the issue.
4-0 the
really,
dream.
really quickly before we get to how the standings worked out, I think the best part about this thing for CLG is the fact that they could actually sit there and work with Monty while he goes over his OGN VODs for the OGN cast. If Monty was not an OGN caster, he could have just came over here. He could have sat with the CLG team and done this in NA. But the fact of the matter is the person they need to tell them what to do is an ocean away, so they had to go to him. And that caused all the rest of this to come.
That's the right choice. I think the discipline aspect is going to be one of the biggest things for them. And I think having someone in-house to be on top of that, because like, what does Kelby do? What does Macom do? Do they just come by and say, hey, how are
Kelby keeps them alive.
Get in your Skype call with Monty so he can tell you what to do. Now Monty's here. Monty gets to be like, what are you doing? Like, why aren't you playing Korean solo queue? Why are you picking this champion that isn't viable? Like, focus. And when people are like having discussions, he gets to facilitate. There was the Chasing the Cup thing where they were like reviewing play together, and Seraph didn't get to talk at all, and people were just talking over him, and he didn't get to say anything. Why doesn't Seraph get to talk? Like, he's 1/5 of the team, and I know his performance isn't very good, but he should be talking. He should be communicating. And I'm hoping that what Monty's going to do is facilitate like not only healthier team discussion, but just better discipline from the team.
Well, time will tell. Time will tell whether or not this works out for them. We've proverbially beat this to death. We'll know in a couple of weeks
See,
whether
I just think
or
you're
not
looking at it
the
wrong. It
effort.
doesn't matter if it works out for them or not.
But that's their prerogative. They're trying to do what's best for them. They're not trying to do what's best for
You're looking at it from
everyone
the
else.
aspects of esports as a franchise, like CLG as a business, where it's like they're disappointing tons of fans and they're doing all these things.
Or even
and they're
take
looking
it to the
at
Also, the
LCS in
fans
general.
loved it.
They got 3 brand new players brought in for the last 4 games. They had none of their original roster starting for an entire week of competition.
Sounds like Gambit.
Whoa, hold on a second.
Oh,
That was not their fault.
CLG.
Transition.
CLG chose to do this. Gambit
No,
are just
I
stuck in
kid.
Russia.
So, like, I get that
kid.
Riot okayed it, but I am at a loss to understand as to why Riot did.
This
because-
is a discussion for another time. We have plenty of NA to talk about. We'll know whether or not this was a good decision for CLG in a couple of weeks. Will we ever know whether or not this is a good decision?
Wait,
for
I'm gonna
esports?
end with a twist. Riot okayed it so that CLG could go to Korea and waste a lot of time, so when they come back and lose, Doublelift gets to the analyst desk, and Doublelift's part of the Illuminati.
Really? I was going to say they okayed it because it's a power play from CLG, and they're like, well, we can't really just kick them out if they're just all going to leave to Korea, so I guess we'll let them play for a 5-sub
Stop making
roster.
sense and get more on the Reddit detective trail.
Illuminati! Is that what you
And
want, Tom?
speculation craft begins. So, speaking of speculation, where to start with the Super Week? Let's start it in the
I was
perfect way.
impressed. I forgot about it. I'm glad you're on.
Let's start once again at the bottom. We have Complexity and Evil Geniuses not able to make it out, despite those two teams' godlike performance. Wow, where were these teams?
They really put their all in.
I mean, Evil Geniuses, the 4-0 dream coming true, being able to just crush everybody and everything that got put in front of them. And Complexity actually almost had a chance to overtake Curse. Like, if it wasn't for Curse's immaculate gameplay, and I put that on the other teams more than I put to Curse, despite my accommodations to specials in our previous part. Complexity had a chance. They could have made this a real thing for them, where they could have been in playoffs. And do I think they would have, made it any further than 6th place? Absolutely not. But they still could have at least had that confidence that they made it there.
Well, they did everything they could in the sense of taking down Curse to start the week. And then, I mean, the way Curse played the rest of the week, there's no way that they could have leapfrogged them, unfortunately.
Right.
But,
right.
yeah, I was kind of sad to see Complexity not have that shot at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of it, there was really just the top teams had some very mediocre performance. Like Cloud9 did great. They got up to first place. LMQ just kind of flip-flopped. I won't put that on this whole drama that they've been having, going on, because they did have a couple of really good games. So I can't say that it's the whole management issue that's got them down. I think at this point they're a little bit above that as a team. I think they're just more focused on getting in there and doing what needs to be done. But taking a look, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of in-depth storylines to go over here, unfortunately. Just kind of the week landed as it did, and unfortunately it was EG and Complexity that made the most moves. But going into playoffs, we're going to be seeing TSM versus Dignitas and CLG versus Curse, with Cloud9 and LMQ getting their first bye. Now, who plays into who?
Curse and CLG play into Cloud9.
Okay.
And then TSM Dig plays into LMQ.
Okay. See, I think, and we'll just kind of take this match by match. I guess we'll start here with TSM versus Dignitas. This is kind of a weird game to me. Dignitas has been on such just a rut recently. It really, like the second half of the split, it just seems like they've been very slowly falling apart. And even after the games this Super Week, you just saw a crushed Dignitas. They just weren't happy.
Yeah, and what's going on with that? They were looking so promising early on, and
2-8.
I think that's
they ended the split 2-8.
That's really the problem. I think, Greg, is that they were looking so great and they were feeling so great, and then as soon as you took that away, what do you have? You kind of have this insecurity. It felt more like Coast than anything. I think that was Tom's getting pissed.
I wonder why it felt like Coast.
I almost want to say that this is Dignitas just being a new team and getting.
This is Dignitas being Dignitas. They've done this every single split.
They're learning, though. I think
they got one extra win this split.
They're in a better position, I think, as a team in their upcoming success or failure than they were.
I would agree with that, yeah, but they still don't look great.
Unfortunately, I think just, and I'll get everybody else's thoughts, but I don't know if this is enough to get not put into relegation. I don't know if they're there yet.
I still don't think they get put into relegation. Like the way the scenarios play out in my head, like Dignitas is probably going to wind up playing Curse, and I don't necessarily see Curse being. I don't know. Like I just don't see Dignitas losing to Curse in a best of 5 series. I guess that's the way I'll put it.
Well, see, here's the thing. If you had asked that question a couple weeks back, it would have been a no-brainer, right? Dig would have taken Curse easily. But if you start to look at the trends and the trajectories, Curse is on the rise. They're looking better and better. They're getting more confidence. Dig, it's the opposite. Their confidence is leaving. They're looking sloppier and sloppier as the weeks go on. I think, as much as I hate to say it, because I really do love the new Dig team and I have high hopes for them in the next split, I think Curse might actually be able to beat them, and that would put Dig in relegations where I think they will beat their challenger.
I view Curse like super hot crew. If you put Voyboy on tilt in a best of X series, you're not going to win. Like, they won't win, I mean.
I think this is going to be a little bit different, just because we can talk about momentum, and I do believe that Dig has looked pretty terrible the last few weeks, but we got to remember there's a lot of time before these quarterfinals. We are not sure when they're happening, but I know PAX is in 3 weeks, so they have a long time till then. I'm guessing it might even just be the week before that is quarterfinals.
It makes the most sense because we have a week before and then Gamescom, and then there's a blank week there. So
so I'm guessing that's going to be quarterfinals, and so whereas EU has to play right next week, like that momentum can still carry over till then. We have potentially 2.5 weeks before the NA teams have to play and can kind of right the boat a little bit.
These games aren't happening until August 23rd.
Yep,
that's Saturday. That's Saturday, not this week, but the next.
Wow. That's a long.
That's 2 weeks. That's one. Yeah,
it's 3 weeks from yesterday.
3 weeks from yesterday. And so here's kind of the big question is, so TSM, with the addition of Lustboy hasn't been a factor yet, and that's because they're new, and TSM saw some success, and the thing that I said, I think it was last week, was I want to see what happens when they start to lose, when they're not, gaining early advantages, and the other members of TSM aren't particularly performing well. And we sort of saw that with just really overall pretty much just the shittiest play from TSM. It was kind of just like this wet noodle of let's lose to LMQ but beat Dignitas and then kind of flop around. And who else did they lose to? They lost to Curse.
How did we end up on TSM? I thought we were still talking about whether or not Dig is going to, or Curse is going to lose out. Did we just magically turn into TSM discussion there, Mott?
Well, it's not talking, so it turns it into a TSM discussion.
In my mind, we were still talking about Dignitas, and now we're talking about whether or not TSM can beat Dignitas.
That's their opponent. It is their opponent in the quarterfinals, at least. So there's a slight segue. It's
Next
not
time
too
I'll
forced.
announce my segue.
It wasn't a big.
You usually do.
I just feel like we just gotta like lock it down. Like Mock gets 10 minutes to talk about TSM.
All right,
and that's it. You have to like starting now.
Whoa! I didn't get my 10 minutes to talk about Roccat, so I'm cutting you off this week.
Oh.
All right. Well, let's hear from somebody not me about TSM. Then okay, we got the matchup. We got Dignitas. We got TSM. We have a best of 5. Those are the things we know. We know that Lustboy's new. We know that Dignitas is on a downtrot. Where do you see this ending up? Dan, since you called me out.
Okay, best of 5. I think that it's all about who steps up. Either Crumbs is going to play badly and Dignitas is going to lose, or Dyrus is going to play poorly and TSM is going to lose. I think those are the 2 players that you need to look at to decide who's going to win the game. And I think that Dyrus is going to come into it with a good attitude. And I think that TSM will probably take the series over Dig. But a lot of that is just because I have very little faith in Crumbs after his recent performances.
I could totally see that. I had to hop on the TSM bandwagon because I claimed that TSM was going to be first in NA at the beginning of the split. So
you also said that LMQ was going to be 4th or 5th.
And they still can.
That's very true.
Touche. I mean, Tom. I said that in Europe we were going to have Alliance and Fnatic at the top, and then the rest of them in some kind of jumble. So my crystal ball works pretty good for Europe so far. I got to see if it works for NA.
What? Your crystal ball works pretty good because you predicted the 2 best teams in EU. Surprise, are going to be on the top of EU.
Not only that, but I predicted that it was going to be the 2 teams and then a giant space and then everybody else.
Okay, well that's fair. That is a prediction.
When SK was the 2nd place team last split.
I'll give you that.
So my one comment on TSM, and so I want to hear if somebody else is on the same page with me on this one. I was really unimpressed with Dyrus this week, and I wonder if it's because the top meta is shifting a lot. Because he ended up playing Gragas, Lulu, who he did 0-7, so that's pretty stellar, and then some awful Aurelia play. And I'm not used to seeing him on not tanks.
I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know if
gonna
I'm
be-
allowed to participate in this conversation. Has anybody kept the clock?
Should we vote on whether or not Mock gets to talk?
Mott can talk.
All right.
All
So
right.
Dyrus has said time and time again that all he does is copy. And I don't know if that's Dyrus just being a douchebag in interviews and just pretending like he doesn't give a fuck, or if that's Dyrus just being legitimate and saying, I give so little fucks that I'm just going to tell you that I don't even really think I'm that great of a player. And I'm not an innovator. I'm just going to copy what everybody else does. But the problem...
Do the two have to be mutually exclusive?
I don't think it's bad that he's not an innovator. Like, I don't think it's bad that he's not an innovator. I think if he can copy people well enough, that's fine. Like, that's a good thing.
But
as long as he can play well.
I think every player has a niche, and if he's being forced into some other one, like trying to play the Gragas, trying to play the Lulu, which, where the fuck have you been, Dyrus? Like, those have been strong top lane picks for the past couple of weeks now. If that's the way you're going to go, don't try to pull that out when everything matters. Stick to what you're good with. But I just don't think he's that strong of a pick. I think TSM's in trouble if they get put into relegation, and moreover, I think Dyrus is in trouble in terms of his job.
Yeah, I could see
He's
that.
the last member to go.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't
very
think he's that. I think he just needs to figure out how to play against Maokai. I think he's just weak to Maokai. I think that the Maokai has absurdly
super
good...
effective against him.
Well, it's like Maokai is unique in top lane because it's almost he's one of the best top laners at setting up ganks because he literally just gets to snare you for free, like easily. And unlike Ryze, he gets another CC to follow it up with. So when you pair it with something like Evelynn, it's pretty easy to just force ganks on a Lulu all day. The thing is that I feel like Dyrus wasn't used to that because he played way too forward on Lulu, like way too forward. And Lulu is one of the safest top laners in the game, the safest top laner in the game, I would say. And the fact that he just like managed to die that many times means that he just isn't comfortable in that lane matchup.
Dyrus is a lot like me as a player. I don't really give a shit.
You don't put wards down?
I probably ward
For the Evelynn?
I don't really give a shit, and when the game swings in my favor, I can be a huge player, and I can actually do pretty well, and that's how I got to silver. But I see Dyrus in some respects as one of the worst players on TSM.
As a silver player?
As a silver player making that judgment, yes. I see Bjergsen as the person who's going to be the make or break as to whether or not they win. I see Wild Turtle as kind of their steadfast backup, and Lustboy's job is to make sure that he just doesn't suck. And I see Amazing with a really good ability to follow instructions and just do what needs to be done. And when things come down to it, like Mitch's camera just went down, Dyrus needs to kind of be this consistent rock who you're paying for it if you're not paying attention to him. And he just doesn't do it for me. Not anymore. Not like he used to.
I think Bjergsen's always good. Like, Bjergsen's always good.
Unless you shut him down and ban him away.
Yeah, but even then, he doesn't play terribly. I think Dyrus is the one that like really goes on tilt, and when he's bad, he literally does nothing. I feel like Bjergsen is mechanically skilled enough that he can make up for it if he loses in lane. I feel like once Dyrus loses in lane, like really loses and starts to die a lot, he's just done. He's out.
You can get in his head.
Yeah.
He'll start making dumb plays because he kind of gets that background of like, I really don't care, like whatever, this doesn't really matter.
No, you have to do it right. I don't really care, like whatever.
We really need record. I don't know if the record Dyrus comparison has ever been made, but to me they're like the same person.
I think that's just the personality that he has. I think it's in the same way that Monte Cristo is like the cocky, I know everything caster.
Sure.
I don't think that's what he's actually like. I would be willing to guess, and I'm willing to bet that Double Lift is not like, I'm the best, no one's better than me. And I think recently he's changed that personality, but even when that was like his faux personality, I don't think that's how people are. I think people interview differently than they act in the game.
With the exception of St. Vicious, I don't think any of the people in the LCS are bad people. Like, I'm just gonna criticize them from here because I can.
I'm not saying bad people. I'm just saying they act differently they have a different personality.
I'm going to go on the record here, and this is probably going to be a soundbite somewhere in the future. But as far as the Wrecker and Dyrus comparison go, I've never been nearly as excited for Dyrus's penis as I have been for Wrecker's penis.
Yeah, dog.
There's a statement for the guy in chat spamming for us to all do dirty things. There you go.
Let's reel it back in. TSM versus Dig. Best out of 5. As much as I dislike to do it, I kind of have to give this one to Dig.
Ooh, I want to hear this thought process.
I think Dig right now has plenty of time to rally, and we've seen Dig able to execute a strategy well. And I think if you play against TSM, which is really easy right now, ban out Bjergsen, piss off Bjergsen, and their whole communication structure shuts down. And I think you can do that 3 times in somewhat close of a range. You can do that effectively. You can plan your whole week. You have 3 weeks, Dignitas. You can do it against TSM. And I think best case scenario for TSM, even if they do make it across into the next area, I don't think they're going to beat LMQ. I don't think they have beat LMQ yet. So, I mean, for them, it's kind of like, it's almost worst case scenario, you know? You're either going to lose in this most recent match, or you're going to lose in the one coming up.
So I would kind of agree with that, except for the fact that there's going to be so much time in between. I actually think that time gap is going to be a benefit to TSM and not Dig. I think Dig's going to have to stew over their terrible performances recently. I think TSM is going to have the time they need to get a little bit more synchronized. So I think TSM's got time on their side, and with the whole LMQ situation, who knows what 3 weeks is going to do to that. I think, if anything, the longer that goes on, the worse LMQ's chances are. Their ability to stay above things, now that they don't have games for 3 weeks, may be somewhat compromised. So, out of everything, I think that's the hardest bracket to predict. But I'm going to have to say that TSM takes Dig. I think LMQ will beat TSM, but if they don't, I would not be terribly surprised.
Okay. So, CLG, first of all, before I move on, since people get antsy about these things, any other thoughts about TSM versus Dig that hasn't been said already?
I'm pretty sure that this is the first time all of us besides you are rooting for TSM.
I think I'm going for Dig here. I think Dig's got this.
My heart goes to Dig, but like if I was a betting man, which clearly, as we've learned on this podcast, we all are dirty gambling addicts. I really got to put my pretty penny on TSM.
Show, actually, we got to talk about playoffs bets, but I want to go on the record. I don't hate where TSM is as a team right now. Like, I think Lustboy is a good place to be. He's really good friends with Lokodoko.
I don't like the Lustboy pickup. I really disliked it. I don't think I was on the show for this.
The Lustboy pickup was greedy. I think that it's an off-season decision, not a decision you make with 2 weeks left.
But the Lustboy pickup was so bad.
I'm fine, Dan, with the repercussions of that. I'm fine with TSM even going into relegation and making it out because of the Lustboy pickup. I'm okay with that, as long as in the spring split they come back strong and they come back acting like they should. I don't hate the fact that TSM is there as a team. I'm a total supporter of bridge years. You can work on it. You can take a step back, CLG.
I mean, Dan, look at it like this. There's no way they were winning the championships with Glebe. So what does it matter if they switch them out now or later?
I think it's for better seeding in the split, but I think you're right. I think there's no way they were winning with Glebe. But the other thing is that I think people are too eager to just grab Korean players up because of their mechanical skill, when really the reason Korean players are so strong, I mean, aside from existing in a country where mechanical skill is just generally much higher because it's more competitive, is that they have much better support staff and infrastructure and training schedules and training regimens, and that's not something that Doko necessarily brought. I think that if anything, Lustboy's only going to get worse in North America because his training is almost 100% guaranteedly much more lax than it was in Korea.
And the worst part about that is he just came off his worst season with CJ Blaze that got him kicked off the team.
Yeah, it's it's really weird that we're happy to grab up like second tier Korean players. Like we're eager to grab them. Like
I'm
why?
happy to grab somebody who isn't Glebe. They needed to make a move. And
And you weren't grabbing anyone from NA. I agree with that, but I feel like there has to be a better decision than just like grabbing.
You could have taken
it's Crepo.
Baby Eater.
It's Crepo.
Baby Eater. He proved himself this week.
It's Crepo. That would have been the best solution, obviously, but EG is doing too well to let him free. Just let him free. Let Snoop go
Seventh
work for
place.
Riot.
Free Crepo. That's the new hashtag.
Let Snoop go work for Riot and let Crepo be TSM's support. And then number 1, TSM.
Oh my god, a Crepo turtle lane.
But CLG versus is Curse is the other half of our first round of playoffs. And well, this is kind of an interesting matchup because here we have CLG who's taken time off to fully prepare for this match. And what a hard team really to prepare for than Curse, because Curse has so many just weird ass wins that you don't expect. They have these weeks where they just go stellar and they're like, wow, like Curse is great. And then they go into mediocrity for a little bit and you kind of forget that they were good. And then they show up in the last week of the LCS and they're like, hey, all these teams, fuck yourself. Boo, 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 boo. Down you go. And they find themselves in the position they're in. But which Curse will show up?
That is the question.
Is there,
I don't think it matters. I don't think it's on Curse. I think it's on CLG to come back with like the Korean knowledge and things like that. I don't think it, because if CLG comes back as great as they're in theory supposed to be, then it doesn't matter how well Curse performs because they're going to be on another level.
Then let me ask you a question, Dan.
Super Saiyan.
If CLG didn't leave, what would the discussion be? Who would you give it to?
And Curse.
You
Well,
would give
we
it
would
to
have
Curse
also-
over CLG?
I would say that if Monty came to NA, if they didn't leave for Korea but Monty came to NA, then I'd say it's the same exact question that we're asking now is, are they going to perform? But I think that if they stayed in NA and Monty didn't come over, and they still had, a lot of it is based on this Super Week. Like, this Super Week is not existent right now because the CLG team that played is irrelevant. But if they had played this week, we would have a lot better understanding of where they're at. But if they 0-4 this week, then I would definitely say Curse. Like,
And they
if the
would've-
CLG...
They
would've
played Curse this week too, yeah. Like we would have had a perfect idea of what that would have looked like.
See, I don't think you like acquire Korean skills by osmosis. I'm gonna give it to Curse here. I don't think CLG is gonna go to Korea for a week or two and then come back and they're just all of a sudden magically head and shoulders better than the rest of the teams in NA. I think they were struggling before. I think they're gonna still struggle when they get back, and I think Curse has the momentum. They're gonna prep. They're going to watch the same OGN replays that CLG is going to be watching. I think they're going to be able to guess what CLG is going to bring back with them. I think they're going to prepare for it, and they're going to take them down.
I think...
And then get dropped by Cloud9.
I think CLG on a
And
good
we're back to
day...
Europe.
Right?
CLG on a good day always beat Curse. Like when CLG was performing well, I feel like they always beat Curse. And right now they're not performing well. So my thing with Korea is if there is a way to get your performance back on track, it is playing against the best of the best. And it's not watching the OGN VODs is what Curse is going to be doing. But CLG gets to play those teams. Like CLG gets to play teams that were in OGN, teams that actually have innovation and are coming up with new things. And I feel like that
I don't see
is
them
more
taking
important
away a
than the
lot, though.
VODs.
There's no way those teams are going to give away their innovation and scrims to CLG. Unless Monty's over there literally blowing them. I mean, he could be friends with them at arranged scrims, but they're not going to reveal some kind of next level strats
But
just to benefit
can you
CLG.
Can you, as CLG, kind of take a step back and say, hey, we're still in North America. We're not shooting for worlds here through our practice, at least, unless the internal conversation is different than the external one. That's what I'm basing this off of, is we're not going to worry about Super Week, we're going to worry about playoffs. Can't you go in and say, here are a bunch of strategies we're going to practice, the stuff that we came up with based on our own playoff system. We're going to practice them against teams that we've never played against, or at least aren't too familiar with, and then just use that as a springboard and fix it until it's not broken anymore. You're not giving up anything to North America. You're going to come into a game against Curse, or potentially who would they have also potentially played against? Like, who are the two options? Is it going to be Curse or what? Dignitas?
What do you mean? You mean if they had done well, if they'd done better?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it could have been anyone. It would have been anyone
Okay.
between TSM, Curse, or Dig.
Yeah, the
So-
standings are irrefutably damaged by the fact that they went 0-4 this week. There's
Yeah.
there's
I
so
mean,
many different variables.
Sure, but maybe I'm super ignorant to how these teams work and what the strategies and objectives are. But I can just see CLG going over there to practice them, find a strategy that works for them, play against different team sets, do it somewhat clandestinely, and come back and be able to rock it. Like I don't think they're trying to go over there and be like, hey, let's learn Korea in a month. I don't think Monty's that dumb.
I don't
Like-
think it's about that either. I think it's about being
But that's
with
what we've
their
said
coach
multiple
and getting disciplined. Well, we're excited about that, and that's what everybody wants, right? Is the coming back with Korean Super Saiyan skills and dominating
That's
all of
not-
NA.
I don't think what
It's
the
probably
goal
not
is.
what's going to happen. No,
It
but
worked
I mean,
so great for them in season 2.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say I think Dignitas is going to recover because they're the time off, like they're on a slump, and not say CLG is not going to do the same. I think that this is going to help them a lot. And we talked about support staff earlier. CLG's been away from their coach the entire time. I think that's going to help them out a ton. I don't know who's the coach for Curse, but Lolpedia says it's St. Vicious and Zekin, and I think I give the edge to Monty there a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to help them get back on the right track. I definitely give the series to CLG, not just as a fan, but by logic says, to at least to me, that they should be able to take down Curse.
I'm just
I
gonna
don't-
hands
their,
down
their
say
coach
that.
is not St. Vicious anymore. I know that for sure.
Yeah,
St.
he's
Vicious
playing.
plays- Yeah, he's playing. I don't remember who it is, but I
Who's
think they
he
interviewed
playing
him.
with?
Curse
Chris
Academy.
Academy.
Working his way back out
X
again.
special. I know you can hear me. I believe. I believe.
I feel like Curse Academy is Alcoholics Anonymous, the team. I'm just gonna. just say
So
it.
Wow.
all right.
Wow.
So, all right. So given all probabilities of what can happen, how do you guys feel about LMQ and C9 as teams potentially with matchups in some combination being TSM, Dig, CLG, or Curse?
I like C9.
C9's good in best of fives. They're good in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they're one of the best teams for best of fives.
I
Have
don't
they
think-
dropped
I
a
don't
game in
think
playoffs
anybody
yet?
will What's that?
Did they drop a game in playoffs yet?
Nope.
Because I know they ran through this summer split last year, like perfect. And I don't know if they did last year, but I would not, or this past spring. But
I
I'd be
think
surprised.
I think if you count All Stars,
Well,
that's-
yeah.
but
No, but I mean
kind
in
of
LCS playoffs.
Right,
LCS
right.
playoffs.
yeah, I don't think they have yet. So what about LMQ then? I think we're all in agreement that C9 is going to take their game and possibly the next one. But how about LMQ? I guess when you're looking at it, LMQ or TSM or Dignitas, who do you see elevating?
I like LMQ. I think that they're going to figure out this any sort of. I think they're going to figure out this controversial support, whatever's going on with their ownership. They got 3 weeks.
I don't think
And-
they're going to figure it out. I think they're just going to find a way to transcend it.
Get
and,
over it.
Yeah,
I mean,
not care.
yeah.
I think it'll be a distraction, but I think at a raw skill level, they're going to be enough to beat either TSM or Dig. So
And they've
What
been
do you-
crushing TSM.
Tom, I'm very curious as to if it's not LMQ, then who is it?
It's TSM. I said TSM was going to be Dignitas, and then TSM has to play LMQ.
But how do you feel about TSM never beating LMQ? And,
I feel like it's about to change.
You sound like Mott.
Like-
you sound like me.
Even though I
In
am
my younger days.
basing it heavily off of the fact that I originally said that TSM was going to be a very good team, and even though I verbally expressed all the things I dislike about TSM and the moves they've made, and even though I am biased against the fact that I said LMQ is not going to do as well as they're doing right now, if TSM roll over Dignitas in the I guess it's technically the quarterfinal, then they should be able to take it to LMQ in a series, whether it be 3-2, 3-1, whatever it is. It's extremely difficult it's part of the reason why I'm also going with Fnatic in my head. Like, when it boils down to it, besides against Cloud9, TSM have extremely good best of X series records, especially against other North American teams. The only other team they've lost to in the playoffs has been Cloud9. There's a reason behind that. Like, just like Fnatic, TSM is a playoff team. When they get into these best of X series, something clicks in the players' heads, they run through the playoffs, and whether they win or lose in the final, they get to the final. It's very few and far between that they don't get extremely far in one of these tournaments. The only one I can really remember is, well, besides Season 2 Worlds, would be IPL 5. Is the only other one they didn't get extremely far in.
I guess the question now is going to be: is it going to click into Amazing and Less Boys' heads?
I already
that's 2/3 of the
I've
or 2/5
already
of the team.
disagreed with the fact that Lustboy was
it's
picked
amazing.
up so
But
late into the
It's
season.
amazing. It's on Amazing. I think
It's-
Lustboy's going to perform solidly no matter what.
If that's the case, then TSM is for a shoe-in for finals, because I think Amazing is the one that's going to perform and Lustboy is the one that's not going to.
Make the pun. Make the required pun every time we talk about it.
I have no idea what you're talking about. This is a very average conversation.
All right. So overall, I mean, I think we're all in a decent amount of agreement for once that Cloud9 will take it.
Yeah.
Will
I'd say
take it.
Cloud9 first for sure.
But much more interestingly, let's take the final counts for who's going to be the third man in Worlds. Optimus Tom, we'll take you first.
Considering you can't have Dignitas in there anymore, we can't have the TSM CLG
Well, you
Dignitas
could.
going to Worlds. We can't have TSM CLG
can't have all
Dignitas going to Worlds anymore. I honestly think... fuck it. Who am I kidding? I'm going to go with the bias again. It's going to be Cloud9, TSM, and CLG.
So TSM's your third. Oh, well, I guess we do have to kind of put two in there, don't we? So you're going to go Cloud9, TSM, and CLG. All right. Mitch, 2 teams. I forgot we're doing 2 because we're not assuming LMQ is getting in.
Yeah, since we're all saying Cloud9. I really want to say CLG, and I think that's...
But will you, is the question.
I think it's more likely that we get LMQ and TSM. I hate to say the top 3 teams out of standings, but I want CLG to make it, but we just haven't gotten to see what's going to happen quite yet.
I hate TSM, but
I hate them.
they have a support staff right now, and LMQ is a shit show as far as organization goes. So I'm gonna agree with Tom. I'm gonna say CLG TSM, and I hate it, but I don't think LMQ is gonna be on their A game.
I hate agreeing with myself all the time.
Greg?
It's tough being you, Tom.
I will say
It's tough being this
Cloud9,
amazing.
Cloud9, LMQ, and TSM.
TSM.
Wow, we're on the same page.
So everybody agrees that TSM is going to make it.
Let's just be clear. Curse and Dig
Well,
are out.
Actually,
We can agree on that.
Now that
Yeah.
you mention it,
Oh,
is there a path for Curse?
No.
Curse
Well, I mean-
have to
Okay.
beat CLG.
CLG, and then C9. Well,
And then C9.
maybe,
And
or
then
C9 or third place.
No, so how would this
So,
work? So
if Curse were to lose to Cloud9 and beat,
TSM or
TSM?
LMQ. Or
TSM.
DZ.
They would make
you
it
know
to
what? I will
Worlds.
be bold. I will say Cloud9, LMQ, and Curse. I have a
feel
good
like you're-
feel about Curse.
Ooh.
Oh, I feel like that's not your real prediction. I feel like you're saying that to mix it up. I feel like you've drawn this path. And you're like, this is almost impossible. I'm going with this just to mix it up.
Almost impossible.
I
He
just-
says Cloud9 LMQ. If it was really impossible, it'd be Curse, Dignitas, and CLG.
I'm not that crazy.
I'm gonna go ahead and say Cloud9 for sure. LMQ. I'm gonna have to give it to CLG. LMQ and
Oh.
CLG are my 2 flex picks.
All right.
That's it.
All
That's
right.
it.
I'm
That's-
proud of you, Mott. You didn't say TSM, and I'm
The-
proud of you for that.
I'm-
That must have been hard.
I'm waiting.
He already
gonna
talked
be-
about it
it's
too
gonna
much.
be-
He had his quota. He had his quota of TSM.
It's
saves.
gonna be
that's
even
right,
more
We cut him
difficult.
out of TSM time. He
He's not
actually
allowed to
can't
say
say
it
those
anymore.
3 letters anymore.
It's going to be more difficult for him when he's wrong at the end of playoffs.
And he's like, I was wrong. I'm so happy, but I was so wrong.
I honestly, I want to say that getting into relegation for TSM is probably the best thing that can happen to that team.
No, they're going to turn into Curse number 2. They won't have anybody from the original roster coming back the next
That's
season, and then they're going to be
okay.
terrible for the rest of
That's
forever.
Okay. It's
You
gonna happen
hate
eventually.
Curse!
It's gonna happen eventually. I don't hate Curse because of Curse. I was actually thinking about it, and Dan stole my thunder in the last segment. I don't mind Curse today. It was Saint Vicious I didn't like, and it's Curse as a brand I don't like, and I have to hate someone. I can't just love all of the teams and go like, okay, I hope everyone wins. No, I have to hate somebody, and Curse is the person I hate. And Saint Vicious is the reason. Saint Vicious, I've met a lot of LCS players that have openly trashed. You are the only person who I still consistently do not like. And I've met you before in real life, and you don't even know. You don't even remember, but that's fine. I was the only...
Was he drunk?
No.
But I'm going to hate you, Saint Vicious. I'm going to hate you forever, and there's nothing you could do about it.
And he doesn't even give a shit. I would honestly feel bad. I'd be like, oh, shit, man. Like, I'm sorry. That's the worst thing ever. It shouldn't matter to you. But it was PAX last year. Cloud9 was invited for... Or not Cloud9, rather. Curse was invited because Curse wants to spend a ton of money and probably paid Riot to let the team go to PAX. And I'm walking through the PAX booth, and I didn't know this was happening, and I look up, and I'm like, that guy looks like Voyboy. And then I look down the line, and it's like, wow, that's all of Curse playing with fans. And then St. Vicious is at the back. We're watching the game, and it's a mix of Curse players and fans, and St. Vicious dies to some fan, and nobody cheers, but except for me. I let out one triumphant shout, and it was just quiet. And then I left because it was really awkward for everybody else who was around us. That was a crowning moment for me back on the podcast.
I just had this image of you like being one of those people like in soccer games where you're just gonna run in like your underwear across the stage with like F Saint Vicious tattooed on your back, like as he's trying to qualify with Curse Academy.
More or less.
Like that's gonna be your crowning achievement in League of Legends community history.
I hope Curse Academy makes it, because I'd love to be able to say, I don't really like Curse, I hate Curse Academy. I'd love to be able to say.
I wonder who would pick them up, because somebody would have to pick them up. It couldn't be Curse anymore.
Well, technically, Curse Academy is owned by Curse, and Curse Gaming is owned by Esports LLD or something, which is owned by Liquid. So they would be owned by two separate companies.
Oh, okay. Well,
so you could have Curse and Curse Academy. They just might change their name to make things less confusing.
Yeah, it's a little incestuous, but
Yeah.
I think it'll get through the Riot's legal barrier.
So I want to round off this week's conversation with just a brief update for those who pay attention to the T-Force Network overall fantasy league. I have to run the points to figure out who actually ended up winning now that all is said and done, because there's two layers to this competition. For those of you who are new listening to the show, the T-Force podcast is playing in fantasy against the T-Force LCS Rundown. Ironically, it's really only me and Optimus Tom and Mitch who's on our...
am I playing? I finished 1-10.
But your points still commit.
I know.
To the overall. We also have on our side Wrecker, who is originally on the show. Which is funny because he was also originally on the T-Force podcast, but
Double agent.
That's neither here nor there. So it's all come down to this, really. We have a tie between Optimus Tom and Adam for first place, and they will be playing a 1v1 to determine the winner. And
a best of 3 1v1 in the top lane. Those are the only details we've 100% cemented.
And I will be 1v1ing for third place against Chira. My position against Chira is a little bit better because we do have money involved in this. And if I win or Chira wins, one of us is going to walk away with money, and one of us is going to walk away with nothing. At least with Tom and Adam, it's jockeying for who has more money. But the great thing here is that we have to tally the points and figure out which of the two podcasts called it better, had a better draft, basically.
And the podcast that lost us to do a naked lap around the LCS studios.
And I'm not coming to LA for that, so I guess we'll have to see. So we'll have that for you later on.
You gotta look Tom straight in the eye and say deal, and then when we lose, we all...
Oh, I don't think you guys... It's
the Twitter feed's
just
going to blow up with me like standing in the LCS studio and being the only person there, and it's like, where you at, Tom?
Also, because no one's Also, because no one's going to be at the LCS studios for a while,
Yeah.
so it'll be the best time.
But so this has been episode 23 of the T-Force LCS rundown, and these next couple of weeks are going to be very interesting. I have to look through the schedule and figure out how interesting these shows will be in the next upcoming weeks. But we're going to be talking mostly about playoffs, a lot about Challenger. We'll be dipping in
full best of 5 for each playoff to dissect. So I think
yeah,
we're fine for
we'll
content.
we'll be fine.
Technically, we have more games in 2 playoff rounds than we do in a normal LCS week.
Most importantly, watch the 1v1s because I'm excited for these.
All right.
You'll have to listen to the T-Force proper to figure out when those are going, or
We'll
tune in
announce those
Twitter.
soon.
Or Twitter.
You're
I wanna cast-
supposed to be cross-pollination.
So
We're like bees.
I feel bad. We got to find somebody else to do the stream because my internet connection is apparently terrible.
The
But
problem
right now,
is with that is because we have 5 webcams on one Skype call. I feel
that's
like.
true. But the freeze frame that was just going there for a while was Optimus Tom like, me laughing, Dan laughing, Mitch kind of smiling, and Greg just looking like, like pissed off about something. I have no idea what we were talking about at that point, but this has been the T-Force podcast, and we are signing out after just about 2 hours of show, which didn't feel like anything, really, so I guess that's a good thing. We're excited for Worlds, we're excited for playoffs, and we're excited to figure out what we're going to do in the void caused by all of this. So stay tuned. Join us next Sunday shortly after 9 p.m. You can find all of us on Twitter. If you're out there in podcast land, you have to go and watch the show to see all of our Twitter handles. Because for the first time ever, we actually have the real stream thing up there. And it's 5 people, and they have their appropriately assigned names. So come and check it out, at least for that. At the very least for that. And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
No one ever says bye,
I
except
just-
for Tom.
Be.
We are.